everyone, welcome to Brandon Woodworkers Club. Ready to build something awesome together?
So for this presentation, some of this might be old news for those of you who have been building cabinets, doors, door fronts, especially if you've been building things like picture frames, mirror frames, things like that. I'm going to focus mostly on miter joints used in doors, cabinet doors and drawer fronts. Tom brought in some samples of flat work. This is the kind of door and drawer front that seems to be in trend right now. This is what people, almost everywhere you look, any kitchen cabinets that are being put in, some furniture, it all seems to be like shaker style, flat panel, usually plywood, sometimes even masonite or MDF with just flat rails and stiles. Shaker obviously is a little bit different because it's got a beveled edge here. For anything that's not plain flat like this, you're going to have a rail and stile bit set, which means you're setting up two setups on your router table. And that's what I try to avoid. I don't actually own any.
There's your straight one right there.
Yeah, there it is, thanks. Yeah, here's one that Tom has. And so you can see that you got a basic, you got one bit here doing this, you've got another bit doing this, put it together. Okay. I think most people are probably pretty familiar with
Can you
that.
bring it up here so everybody can see how it is? It's right here.
Over here?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
You're good. Good.
Okay, so you can see there's actually two profiles there. So I am lazy and I don't like to do too many setups on my router table. I spend a lot of time. I have kind of a cheapy router table. I've got one. It's a Cobalt sold by Lowe's, and it mounts on my table saw. It's got an aluminum top on it. It's kind of difficult to use. So got to get down on my hands and knees usually to adjust it. So I try to stay away from that. So what I started out doing, this is a door from a cabinet that I built 2 or 3 years ago. And let me show it over here. So it's got a little detail on it. So you can see there's a bead here, and then there's a solid, this is all 3/4 inch cherry. So there's a solid 3/4 inch cherry panel in the middle that just has a round over, okay, going around here. And then it's got a same round over here. And because it's mitered, you don't really have to do anything different than use this one simple round over bit to do both I call it a frame because it's not really rail and stile, to do the frame and the panel. And then this one, when I did this one, I did this kind of the old school way. So I used what was called an ovolo bit, which is sometimes called a point cutting round over bit, which, if you can think of a round over bit, if you would remove the bearing so it cuts all the way down, then you run it through here. But if you think about the geometry of that bit, it's not very efficient. So using a bit like that, I probably had to make maybe 4 or 5 passes to get this groove deep enough. And then you're left with a flat square edge here on the edge. So then I had to use another round over bit to come again across that. So it basically gives you a full, I don't know if you can see that, it gives you a full bead on that. So it was a lot of work and it was really time consuming. So after I learned my lesson with that, my next project, which was very large project. It was, I don't know, Caleb, if you can show it from the website. it's basically a whole set of bedroom furniture. So it looks like an entertainment center, and it can be used for that, but it's basically a 9-drawer dresser with pure cabinets on each side with glass and shelves and so on. So I had a lot of drawer fronts to make. So I had 9, 10, 11 drawer fronts and a couple doors that are fairly good size. This is one of the drawer fronts from that. I just unscrewed it and brought it in tonight. So this one, and again, you can go back to the camera. Yeah. Looks real similar to that other one. So it's got a bead here, it's got a round over here, and it's got a flat panel. This was done with basically one bit, and I'll show you what that bit looks like. It's kind of hard to find, but when I found it, I was just amazed that it fit exactly the profile that I was making kind of by hand with the other bits. So this is called a corner bead bit. And it's actually, I don't have a picture of what it's really supposed to be used for, but if you can imagine this bit going across this way horizontally and then also vertically, so it basically gives you a round, kind of a round circular thing on the end, and then a round over going this way. Kind of hard to describe, but anyway, what I'm using it for is not its intended purpose. But I found that it actually creates this profile perfectly. You can see that. And it will actually make that profile in one pass. I don't even have to file in one pass. I don't even have to make any local passes at all. So these are incredibly easy and fast to make. And it actually makes a pretty nice looking drawer front.
Are you making those cuts after it's assembled or before it's assembled?
That's a good question. You can do it either way. On some of them, I did just flat pieces of wood with the miters, and I fit them into the face frame. On other ones, I put the beading on, I shaped it first, then I cut the miters. It doesn't make any difference. You can do it either way. Okay, so if we can go to the pictures that I sent. Okay, it's a little hard to read. We lose it?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so really what I'm saying here is it's a good single bit solution, single setup, single bit, using the bit that's on the left-hand side there. That's this one that I just showed you. Then obviously for the center panel and how it fits into the frame, it's going to be a tongue and groove. So you can either use a tongue and groove set, and or probably many of you have already done this before, or you could just use something like a 1/4-inch straight bit. What I do is I use just half of the tongue and groove set. I just use the part that does the groove, or you can just use a rabbiting bit. It doesn't make any difference. And you just raise it up a 1/4 inch. So we're doing a 3/4 inch panel. So you raise it up a 1/4 inch, okay, and you cut the rabbet on that center panel. Then you flip over that center panel and you run it through again. So now you're guaranteed that tongue is going to be exactly in the middle of that panel, which usually that's a good thing, and I'll show you in a few minutes that sometimes it's not a good thing if you're not paying attention. So that's basically what we have here. And then you just line up, let's see, I think, Caleb, if we can go two more, no, more than two, let's see. Go to number, let's see. Go to number 6 if we can. So what this is going to show is what I just explained, where you take the panel, run it through once, flip it over, run it through again, and you're left with basically a 1/4-inch tongue that's exactly in the middle of your center panel. And then to cut your groove in the frame, all you have to do is line up that bit, okay, with the panel that you just cut, with that tongue that's just right there, line it up, and then you can just run your frame through and it cuts the groove, and it's going to be perfect alignment with that panel. Okay, so if we go back to, let's see, if we can go to number 4, Caleb. I don't know how well, yeah, that graphic doesn't come out too good, but basically we have, this is the first bit that I showed. So this is the first cut that you make. This is the profile that we're after. And that's what I showed you on these 2 examples here. So you set the bit down so you just get the half round part of that bit comes right down to the bottom edge, okay? And then you just run that through one time and you're done. Flip it over, lower that same bit, and then you can do the round over that's on the inside part of that frame, which would be, let's see, this one here. So here's a side view, or an end view of what that looks like. Okay, so here's our bead from our bead bit. We drop it down, we run it through, and it does that round over. Or if you don't want to do that, you can actually use just a regular round over bit. It doesn't matter. Your round over bit's going to have to be less than a 1/4 inch radius. Otherwise, it's going to interfere with the panel. Okay. So we've got other profiles that we can do as well. Tom mentioned that I traveled a lot in Southeast Asia. I lived in Thailand for a while. My wife is from Thailand. And I've gotten a lot of inspiration from the classic Asian style furniture, which I don't know if many of you have actually seen that, but I brought an example. Right now I'm working on another project that I'm going to build a cabinet for my wife, and I want it to be in the kind of the classic Chinese style. So we have, this would be like a table here. So imagine this being a leg, and then this being, these being rails, like here and here. And then we have a kind of a full cove here. And then we come up here with a round over. So this is just a prototype as a model before I actually start cutting the big pieces of wood to build this thing. So I've marked all the radiuses and all the bits that I use to do this. Now I show this because, again, this is the kind of the classic Asian or classic Chinese style. But what we just saw here for how to make these can also be used for a tabletop. So this is top. So this is what the top of that table is going to look like, right? So it's the same idea where we've got the panel, okay, that's got the round over on it, tongue and groove, except I didn't do tongue and groove on this little mock-up, but it will have a tongue and groove, and then this will also be rounded over. So kind of using the same technique, the same bits, same everything that I've been doing for all the other ones, have different applications for that. So we have other profiles too that we can do. This is one I've just started working with. A lot of kitchen cabinets now are made like this, where it's got a rounded profile like this, Okay, and then a couple beads on it. This is something, obviously, it has to be a mitered joint, right? You can't just, right, you can't just do like a butt joint on this, because there's no corresponding rail and style bit for something like this, because it's curved in the middle. You can't just push them together. So this is mitered, and then you use the same technique for center panel. See that? And actually, the kitchen cabinets in our house are made very similar to this. Again, this is a really easy one to make. With this bit, it takes 2 passes. It's a little bit too much to do all that curve in a piece of hardwood in 1 pass. So 2 passes on that, miter it, glue it together, and you're done. And that with the same tongue and groove that we did on the other ones. That's a really nice looking profile. And here's another one. I just got this bit a few days ago, so I don't have too much experience with it. This is a bigger version of it. So this is actually a 3-inch bit. And I just select the part of the bit that I want to use for the profile, because a lot of times these molding bits have a lot of other detail in it that you may not want to have on your door. So if we could pull up another picture I've got here. Let's see. All right, number 7. Okay, so yeah, that was it. It was.
It's trying.
Technology
There you go.
is challenging.
It's up here. Or
Nope.
It was.
There it is. Okay, so you can see this is what the full bit profile looks like. So it's got all this extra stuff on there. Okay. I didn't want that on mine. All I wanted was this section right here, from here to here. So that's going to determine how wide your frame can be on your drawer front or your door. And then all you do is raise and lower the bit to the point where you want it and use that part of it. Now, the thing about using these molding bits is they tend to be pretty tall, like 2.5 to 3 inches tall. Most router tables, the fence on the router table is constructed kind of like, so it's a bad example, but let's say this is your fence on your router table, and then there's a solid piece that goes across the top. Well, the problem with using these molding bits is that solid piece gets in the way of the bit. So you're not able to pull the fence forward enough to clear that bearing. So what you have to do is build out your router fence. What I did, the simple solution for me was I just bought a piece of oak, 3/4 inch oak, laminated 2 pieces together and made a new fence. Carriage bolt through it, into the fence, adjustable so I can slide it back and forth. And then that gives me more clearance than I need, so I can bring that fence forward and not hit anything with it. Again, that was something I didn't think of until I tried it. I tried to use the bit and I was like, uh-oh, that's not gonna work. Okay. Let's see what else we have here that we can show. Oh, when you're making, when you're using these molding bits to do a curved profile, one of the things that you need to be sure of is right there on that picture. Keep in mind, if you're doing a door frame, and you're going to use what most people use what they used to call Euro style hinges, okay, the invisible hinges, where you have a 35 millimeter cup that you have to drill. Well, you got to make sure that there's enough meat there. In other words, the worst thing that you could do was put this in the drill press, crank it down, and I popped through the face of my frame. So you got to make sure that you've got enough left enough meat left on that thing. Typically, it's about a ½ inch. With these, it was no problem at all. The other thing to keep in mind, and this goes for any kind of door frame that you might be building, is that you've got to have enough width on your frame to support that hinge. And usually, those hinges, the ones that I've been using, are about 1 3/4 inches. So you don't want to try to have a frame that's less than 1 3/4 inches. Otherwise, you're going to have hinge showing. And actually, it's not going to work. With these, I really like these molded, rounded profiles. With these, you can have a wider frame for your doors and then have a narrower frame for the drawers. You see that in kitchen cabinets sometimes, where you've got a door and then a drawer above it, and they might not have the same frame width. And the way that you do that is you actually need 2 bits. So, for example, this one here, you can get a set. So this is, I think this is a 3-inch. This piece of wood is about 2 1/4 that I use. You can get it in a 3-inch, and then there's in the set, there's also I think it's a 2-inch version or 2 1/2-inch version, so that you can make the same profile but scaled down so that you don't have to have such a wide frame on it. Could we show number 9? I think the question was asked: do you do the molding or the profiling first, or you do it last? In this case here, I did it first. These were pictures of how I assembled the 9-drawer dresser. So you can see I built the face frame first, and then I cut each individual mitered piece, one by one, and fit it together to make sure it fits, because these are all inset. I do only inset doors and drawers. So the tolerance is really small on these to get it right, so you don't have a huge gap or you don't have it rubbing against the wood. Here's a nightstand from that set. So you can see it's a pretty close tolerance.
Pull that towel out of the way.
Oh, that's okay.
See a little bit
We're
better.
good. So I actually cut each one of these and fit it one by one. And that's a pretty time-consuming process, but in the end, it's really worth it because you get the right amount of gap on all of this. You can use a drill bit, a small drill bit to space it out. You could use a couple of credit cards. I got to the point where I just started using some paper that was folded up to get a really close fit on it. So that's basically how I did that. But you can do it, you don't have to do the profiling first. Once you get it all fit, before you glue it together, run it through the router table, put your profile on it, and then just glue it up. The center panels, also, each one is cut individually. The reason why I did these individually is because you just never know. You build the face frame, you never know if you're going to get one that's just a little bit off center, or maybe the wood is warped just a tiny bit. If you go to a furniture factory, they're going to just make them all mass produced. They're just bang, 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 all the same size. For me, I don't have the kind of accuracy that those guys have. So, I might be off by a 1/16 of an inch from one drawer to the next. So, I just take the time and do them one by one, and it seems to work out, but it does take a lot of time. Okay, so I think I've covered most of this. For what's coming up next, after I built this whole set, like I said, I'm building this table cabinet for my wife. That, if we could show that, Caleb, I think it's, is it the last one? Yeah, number 10. And actually, I've changed the design since we sent these pictures to Caleb. I tend to obsess over the design on the computer, and I use PowerPoint. I don't have any special furniture design software or anything like that. I'm just used to doing so many corporate presentations with PowerPoint for years and years that I figured out how to do things that you're not supposed to be able to do with it, and I just stick with that. But for this set of furniture that we saw, I probably spent almost a year designing that, because I'd come up with a different idea. I'd get it all set, get it all drawn out, get it all planned, and I'd say, yeah, you know what, I think I want to change this, or I want to change this, and I go back and redo it, and on and off for about a year until I finally built that thing. And so this same one, if we can show the number 10, this same one has a lot of changes. It's actually not going to, the details aren't going to be quite like that. If you can see on the far right-hand side, that is this. Okay, so that's going to be the leg and the top. Yeah. And then these are, it's actually it's a religious cabinet for my wife. These will all be teak here, these little shelves, and then the rest of it is cherry. And I just saw that Rockler's got their teak on sale for $8.79 a board foot. So
They got a lot.
yeah. Unfortunately, I already bought the cherry to build this. So this, to be true to the style, this style, it should be teak, but it's going to be cherry. So, because I already bought it. And the legs will be very different from what's on there. This is something new I'm going to try for the first time. I'll let you know in another meeting how it turns out, but this is going to be, if you can visualize, this is just a mock-up.
Here, you can hold it up in front of the
Oh.
camera.
Nope. Okay, this is just a mock-up to help me visualize how I'm going to make this, but this will be, this will be a stand, and then the cabinet's going to fit inside this stand. So these are the feet, there's going to be, one on each corner, and then these are going to be rounded. Okay, so these are mitered here, and then I've got a pattern on there, and I'm going to use a small bandsaw to cut these curves here like that. And then that's going to be kind of the classic Asian style curved leg in two directions. So the way you do this is you cut one side, and you got to be careful because you got to do it in one shot. And then you keep the part that was cut off and you tape it back on with some blue tape. And then you rotate it and you cut the other side. That way you're perfectly symmetrical with those cuts. So I've never done it. I'm going to give it a try, and like I said, I'll report back sometime, maybe the next meeting, and show an example of how it worked out. So that's about all.
I got lots of questions.
So any questions?
On that leg design, how are you planning on adding strength to that miter joint?
Okay, two things. That's a really good question. One is I'm going to drill, let's see. So here's the miter, which you're right, it could be kind of weak, so you have to be careful with it. On the sides, I'm going to drill 3/8 of an inch holes and put dowels and peg it in there with dowels, which is, by the way, you do see that on some of the antique Chinese furniture. That's how they did it. The other thing is I've dummied up the inside of this thing too. So it should be plenty strong. And the reason that this is here, and there's going to be a cleat across here, is because the cabinet itself is going to sit inside this, and it's going to rest on these 4 posts and the cleats that I put in there. But that was a really good question. Any other questions?
Yeah, when you stack these, I mean, those that haven't looked at this, this is 1, 2, 3 pieces that make up this profile.
Right.
And then you go to your corner here. How do you, is that just glue?
Yeah, it's just glued on there.
You don't align it with anything?
Just eyeball it. It's eyeballed and glued.
Yeah.
So this is a 1/2-inch quarter round on here. So you kind of eyeball where the roundness stops and becomes flat, and you just lay this on here. And then this is just a core box bit used on a piece of 3/4 inch.
Pass this one.
Sure.
What do you finish it with then?
Well, I hate finishing because I'm always
How do you feel
afraid.
about sanding? How do you feel?
You know, I'm a lot better with sanding than I am with finishing, because I'm always scared to death that I'm gonna screw up weeks and weeks of work and sanding and getting it just perfect. And I'm afraid that when I put a stain on it, I'm afraid it's gonna blotch, or it's not gonna be the color that I want it to be. So this whole set is nothing, there's no color on it at all. And this being cherry, it's gonna darken up over time. And I know you can't see it, but where the handle is on here, or the knob is on here, it's lighter color. And this was just built in, this is probably 6 months old, less than 6 months old. So how I finish it, usually I use about 3 coats of sanding sealer. Okay, and it's the 100% de-waxed shellac. That's what I use. It's the Sinsor seal coat, which I think they have over here. After that, and I get it nice and smooth and nice, and then I use a wipe-on polyurethane matte finish. And I'll usually do 2 or 3 coats of that. So that's not the back. The back is almost raw.
Is that already done?
Yeah, I just took it off the cabinet today.
Don't drop that.
So you can feel it. It's got a nice feel to it.
I see a lot of setups with your router table and a lot of setup time.
Yeah, and that's what I try to keep to a minimum, just because with the table that I've got, it's not easy to do. So that's why I try to minimize the number of bits, try to use the same bit to do multiple things.
For those of you that have made doors and drawer fronts, this is what I would call a modified raised panel that has a very elegant look. That's basically what you have.
Yeah.
But the traditional raised panel would have more of an OG
Right.
concave further in, and a rectangular raised section in the middle. So this is a very handsome look. Look at it.
And one of the
Easier to pass through the router because you're not biting off big chunks of wood.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I don't like doing a traditional raised panel is because it requires a really big bit. My router is a soft start single speed, so I cannot put a speed control on it. And you don't want to be spinning one of those big bits at 25,000 RPMs. Even this largest molding bit that I have probably shouldn't be running at 25,000. Probably should be running at about 20,000, 22,000 max. This one vibrates a little bit. This one's a little bit scary. But yeah, if you're in the same situation as me, where you don't have a variable speed router on your router table, this is an easy way to do a sort of raised panel. Now, I have one example here of a mistake that I made. Where is it? Yeah, this one here. I I said before that usually you want to have the tongue in the center of the panel. This one here, because the inner part of this has dropped down a little bit from the outer part, when I put the groove in here, it is dangerously close to the top here in this bead. So, I mean, it almost looks like it could snap off. Now, when you get a panel in there, it won't. But I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. What I should have, if you're really going to make a door or a front like this, what you would do is use a thinner, run this through your surface thinner a few more times.
Yeah.
Make this center panel a little bit thinner, and then you can go ahead and do the center. Right now, it's a little bit proud of that. Or you can offset. You just offset the tongue on this thing so it's not in the center. So, but basically, you would want to drop this groove down and not have it in what is the center of this piece here. So you would drop it down. So that's what happens when you're not paying attention. Another thing that happens when you're not paying attention is this came off the big set on the wall. These are the nightstands that I built a few months later. Did anybody see the difference? The profile is in a different place. And I didn't notice it until we started thinking about doing this presentation. And I went and I looked at the nightstand and I said, wait a minute, I did that one backwards. And they're all like that. There's 4 drawers that are like that. Not really too noticeable because they're not next to each other, but it's kind of one of those things that's what happens when you're not paying attention to what you're doing. Any other questions?
You've traveled a whole lot. The hardwood, my experience in America, hardwood likes cold weather, and you've been overseas a lot. Is there a lot of variable difference in the hardwood overseas?
Yeah, I think the first furniture that I ever imported, I had a custom, in Hong Kong, I had a set of dining room furniture, custom made, out of rosewood, which is impossible to get now. This was probably 25, 30 years ago. When it came to the US, there was a lot of movement in that wood. It was built exactly like these. So the dining room table had a panel like this, except about that wide from a huge tree. And yeah, and this was in California, when I lived in California. And with the change of seasons, that panel moved a lot. Now, in Asia, the species are different. You don't get things like cherry or oak, things like that. So it's mostly going to be things like reclaimed teak, a little bit of plantation teak, but mostly reclaimed because they used to build houses out of teak. And so there are businesses that go in, they tear down the houses, and they plane it and clean it up and sell that wood. That's most of the teak is reclaimed now. Or wood like rain tree, monkey pod, things like that. Things that sometimes you see it in live edge slabs, big live edge slabs that come from Asia. A lot of it will be monkey pod.
How's the price difference on the teak?
How's
there?
what?
The price difference on the teak there versus here.
Big difference.
A lot cheaper there.
But actually, that's a good deal. And that's pretty close to what it is in Thailand. When I come back, we go twice a year, and we stay for 2 months each time. Every time I come back, I buy some reclaimed teak. I get 1/2 inch and 50 centimeters long, which is about as big as it'll fit in my suitcase. And I bring a bunch of that back each time. And it ends up probably being about $6 a board foot, $5 or $6. So $8.79 is a good deal.
How does that work with bringing in wood species from other countries?
No problem. I don't claim it. No, it shouldn't be a problem. The only thing that you have to be careful about, or you don't do, is any animal products.
I shipped vehicle, a motorcycle, to England one time, and there's specific rules on the crating. For parasites or whatever.
Yeah, that's different. Like if you're shipping something in a container, which I've done. I've done from Hong Kong, I've done from Indonesia, and I've done from Vietnam, and I've done from Thailand. You have to fumigate. You have to fumigate it, and you have to get it certified. And there's a lot you have to go through.
The workaround for me was just plywood, man-made plywood is considered okay.
Yeah.
So the skids were manufactured to take 2x lumber, so glue the plywood together so it fits in the 2x slots. And
Right.
there.
Right.
But when Dave came over to my shop, we had a good visit, and we talked about lots of the details. Now, your miter corners, you talked about your doweling, some of them, is that right?
The only doweling, okay. So biscuits.
Yeah. We talked
Yeah,
about biscuits and
actually, everything that I've done so far, I just glued with a band clamp to make the frames,
just type on.
right? So,
What kind of glue, type on or?
Type on 2. And then Tom suggested that I try to find a mini biscuit machine. I have a regular biscuit joiner, but the biscuits are too big for this kind of work here. So Tom was telling me that you found on eBay?
Yeah, they're obsolete now, but they're all over eBay.
I found one. I found one for $30.
Yeah.
And it actually is coming later this week. The biscuits are hard to find. The mini ones are, what, maybe 3/4 of an inch?
It's a different
or so.
company, but I can hook you up with that.
Okay. Yeah, if you look on Amazon, I think there's only like 1 or 2 suppliers of those. But anyway, yeah, that's in my next projects. The next time I do this, I will use biscuits to give this a little bit more strength. Anything else?
Thanks for watching the Brandon Woodworkers Club. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great content. Click next for another woodworking project.